We have Simon Froude with us here today, and I have the absolute pleasure of being able to interview Simon in relation to the APS. But first, I just want to introduce Simon quickly, the previous state archivist for South Australia and currently the Director General for National Archives Australia. Simon, just quickly, I was thinking about it when I wrote this down. How long has it been now that you've been in this current role?
So I commenced the role in May of 2022. So just a little over 2 years now. So yeah.
Where did that 2 years go? That's quick, isn't it?
It's flown by. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Absolutely flown.
As I mentioned earlier, so we're here today to discuss the future of records management in the Australian Public Service and how National Archives Australia, NAA, will help agencies tackle the challenges ahead. So this has obviously been not a contentious issue, but we've been discussing this to let everyone know who's listening to this interview. Simon and I speak on a regular basis, usually behind closed doors, as in in a meeting room, not necessarily about this particular topic, don't we, Simon? So it's sort of nice to bring it out in the open, I think, and sort of discuss it freely, or openly, I should say. So I know we're all aware that archives and records, they're a major component of the APS, and effective information management is being impacted, I should say, by emerging technologies. And it's a current issue for everyone. Like, that seems to be the trending topic that everyone's talking about. What are we going to do with AI? And I think machine learning is sort of done and dusted now. It's a bit AI and anything else that's coming about. But what does the NAA have planned to keep up with the future? Because it's hard. What's your plans?
Well, look, it is. I mean, I think what makes technology probably the most challenging area of our industry, but also probably the one that provides us with the most opportunity, is just the pace of change. There's things that crop up one day that might look like a challenge, and then the industry will look at that challenge and bring out a technology to deal with it. And that goes back many years now. So we at National Archives, we look at the developments in technology. We look what's happening now, but we also look what's happening that might be happening on the horizon as well. So we're always sort of looking into the future as much as anyone can, really. So we talked about AI, and look, we're looking at the latest developments in generative AI. We try to work really closely with agencies in the APS, industry and organizations more broadly, just so that we can get a sense of what is actually happening. At an APS level, we've been involved in the AI Government Task Force, and have issued some advice on the disposal of records that's created by Copilot. Now, that advice, I think, was promulgated through our April newsletter, but it's shortly going to be republished on our website. So that's going to be available to everybody, not just those within the APS who get the newsletter. So we're always looking at doing little things like that. Where I think we get real value is when we work with agencies or we work with industry to build up those use cases. I think, it's, having worked in an agency for many years in the information governance space, understanding what your colleagues are doing in like-minded organizations around the country or within your state or territory is really important, because it helps you learn from them. So we work closely with agencies to develop the use cases. A lot of the time, the agencies are using technology that we haven't brought on board ourselves yet. And so we're actually learning from them at the same time and sort of building that into our thinking. Look, industry plays a crucial part, obviously. And so we are talking to industry about their products, about their services, to see what they think might be coming, but also to make sure our requirements are current, and meet the needs of the sort of current and new technological environment and solutions that are out there. So an example of that is that we're in fairly detailed discussions with Microsoft at the moment, to better understand the information management compliance in some of their products that are now being used, M365, across many organizations, both public and private. So, we're in quite detailed and regular contact with Microsoft in that space. Sort of lifting it up a bit, though, we also do a lot of work collaboratively across the country with our colleagues. So through CARA, which is the body of the sort of heads of state and territory archives, and working groups like ADRI, where we are actually sort of trying to get into the practicalities of what the new technology means, and then providing guidance, practical guidance to agencies as well. But we also do a range of things. We have staff members who are on a range of national and international standards committees, for instance. So not only are we looking at where industry is going, we're also looking at it from the standards and policy side, so that we can actually guide that industry development. We can guide the implementation of those systems. And education is a real key, I think, across the profession, both records and archives profession. And so we're looking at ways of boosting not only the skills and literacy of our staff, but also staff across the profession. We've recently entered into a digital archive cadetship program with Charles Sturt University, which is going great guns. And that's an opportunity really to help influence the thinking and the skill set of those people who are coming into the industry.
I must say, I'm really impressed, Simon. Not that I wasn't going to be impressed, but that's a lot of stuff. You're doing a lot of things, and you've got your fingers in lots of pies, which I think's amazing. And continue on, please, on behalf of the industry. But I'm going to ask the question to add, just to add on that. You mentioned earlier it's fast paced. And all these things are amazing, and this has happened to all of us, that we've tried to, and RIMPA do it too, change and implement policy or best practice. And then that, by the time we get it through and we get it consulted with and in your case legislated, I suppose, for want of a better word, but it's sort of the next trends come along. Do you find that to be frustrating, I suppose, is where I'm coming from me personally?
Yeah, it can be. And look, I think one of the things that the pace of change has caused in recent years, particularly for organisations like ourselves, where we might be setting the policy stance for government, or we might be providing advice to agencies, is that I've seen this both in this my current role, but also former roles as well. We've moved away from being very prescriptive in our standards and our policy development, and we're more focused on sort of a principles-based approach. So if agencies are undertaking, are meeting those principles, and if they are achieving the outcomes that we might need them to achieve under our legislation, then the how they get there is less important. So if you look at it from the perspective of making sure that digital records that need to be retained forever, what system they might be created in is less important to how they're actually managed with in that system and how they come out of the end of the system. So we're taking, I think as a profession, we're taking a different approach to what we might have done 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, which I think is the clever way of doing it, Simon. As I said, there's no one, it doesn't matter whether it's NAA or anybody, to keep up with the new or emerging technologies even concepts that are trending. It's just hard because new things happen all the time. I suppose that leads into, so you're aware that RIMPA is on a pursuit, I suppose, for more effective record keeping in the APS, and we really believe that NAA play a big part in that, and you're aware of that because you and I've had that discussion. So what do you believe that we can do, or how can we share with our listeners on what we can achieve together to improve records management in the APS?
Yeah, look, I think I've always been a really strong believer that, particularly I think in the records and information and archival space, having strong professional bodies is really important, because we are a relatively small industry compared to other industry sectors, and so we need strong professional bodies, we need strong leadership, and we need a voice and advocacy, and I think that's what we've seen from RIMPA and ASA as another example in recent years, and I think that's really good to see. From my perspective, being the head of NAA, we're always happy to partner with our professional colleagues, and that obviously that extends to RIMPA. I think we've got a very long and solid history and partnership between our organisations, and it's one that I want to make sure that we continue to foster. And I think where you have organisations like National Archives working hand in hand with the professional bodies, you get a better result for everyone. So I think, you know, first and foremost, I think that relationship is really important. Some of the areas of our sector that I think are probably ripe for working more closely together are probably things around education and training. I think that's one area. I remember when I came into the industry back in the it would have been the mid 90s, sort of, 96, 97. There was a lot of really good training, education and learning opportunities that were organised by RIMPA, or they were organised by industry, or by the archival jurisdictions. And I think we need to get back there. I think that's sort of, for whatever reason, whether it's a different direction or whether it's through funding reductions or whatever, that sort of education piece has dropped away. So, we are, as an organisation, National Archives is currently looking at how best we can respond to that need, because that need is out there. We're hearing that from agencies. But obviously, RIMPA are doing some great work in this space with the learning programme that you've established. And so I think there's an opportunity there where I think between National Archives, the other archival jurisdictions, and RIMPA and other groups, that we can actually fill the gap that has built up over the years.
The other one
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So we've made an effort too over the last couple of years. Sorry, Sam, just to add to that, about being involved with the universities, so that higher education, obviously in the vet industry, with yourself. And you're right, it's a bit of a mixed match at the moment, and I think we all need to work together, and that's what we're doing. It's taken me 5 years to bring every party together, not because anyone didn't want to. I think it's a hard task. It's a hard thing to do.
It is. And particularly where you're trying to pull players together from across the sector, whether it be government or private or university or the professional bodies. It is difficult, but I don't think there's a single organisation out there that can provide all of the education and training needs for all information professionals. So we have to share the load, I think. And I think we can obviously continue to work in that space. The other area that I think is of real interest, and again, one where I think RIMPA can play a really important role because of your connections, is through understanding what services and solutions are out there provided by industry. So sometimes, as a practitioner, you might not know what's out in the industry landscape, just because you haven't had visibility of it, and so there's an opportunity there, I think, to further that work as well. But as we've said already, National Archives and RIMPA collaborate a lot. We have sessions like today, as you said, earlier, you and I meet quite regularly. Our staff give talks and presentations. We're going to be at the RIMPA Live convention later this year, and then obviously we've got the RIMPA hackathon that we're really proud to sponsor, which is I think going to be a great event.
Oh, absolutely. And as I said, RIMPA and anyone that's going to be involved in the hackathon cannot thank you enough, Simon, for the amazing sponsorship that NAA are providing. So, which actually falls into a question later on that I want to talk to you about, which is the information asset one, which sits onto that in the hackathon realm. But just to continue on, recently there was an article in the Australian government on the Australian government website, about the OAIC. You might want to tell everyone, I know who they are, but an NAA joining forces for a proactive approach. And I just want to read something that NAA said, which was, National Archives and the OAIC are calling on all government to take a proactive approach to information management. Amazing, that's great. Government information is a strategic asset ready to be harnessed by both agencies and the community we serve. I think that's a really profound statement, and I totally agree with it, and RIMPA do too. And that we're on a path of the value of information assets and as a strategic asset. But what do you believe government agencies should consider when they're trying to achieve this request, I suppose, from you?
Oh, look, it's multi-layered. There's a lot of different moving parts to it. I think first, and I guess so going back to your very first point, the OAIC is the Office of the Australian Information Commissioner. So they have responsibility for FOI and privacy at the Commonwealth level and into the private sector as well. So We have a really good. NAA has a really strong relationship with the OAIC. We've worked with them for many years. We do and are ramping up that relationship. You know, they are one of our key strategic partners in the federal government, and we'll continue to work really closely with them. So I would imagine that you will see more collaboration and more partnership between our two organisations. So going to that point about information as an asset. So, you know, we promote the idea that information is an asset, and, you know, we should manage and treat the information just the same way as we would do other assets as well. You know, agencies have been encouraged to establish really robust governance frameworks for information, you know, including committees. So, you know, having chief information officers, increasing the professionalism around staff within the government sector as well. We've sort of then taken that and built on that notion of information governance being a sort of a key part of managing things as an asset. And through the Building Trust in the Public Record policy, we continue that by really requiring those information governance mechanisms to make sure that they're operational and they remain up to date as well. So that's one of the key aspects of that policy statement. Likewise, in our information management standard, we provide a bit more detailed advice around that and guidance around how to invest in the management of government records in such a way that they are, they're trusted, they're authentic, that they're managed appropriately and with accountability. And really, what the aim of all of that is really to make sure that the records and information that is created by government agencies is of value and will continue to be of value by the government, but also by industry and the public. So we need to remember that the use of a record, particularly a piece of information or a record that comes into the National Archives collection, will be used and reused many times. So that initial use that it's created for is just one part of the journey and the life cycle of that record. So we need to make sure that value is maintained, and in some instances, the value of those records will increase and decrease over time depending on what they're being used for. So, you know, that's why having that sort of asset management approach or lens, if you like, over information is really critical. And you know, we understand that good information governance takes time, and it takes commitment, and it takes resources, and that's really what we're looking for from agencies. And at a very, simplistic level, what we're trying to ensure is that that agencies have the right people, they have appropriate policy, that their practices are appropriate for the records and information that they're creating, and that they're managing them with them in the right platforms as well. So that's really the approach that we're looking at.
And it sort of leads into, and we mentioned before about the hackathon. So the hackathon this year in 2024, which is going to be held just adjacent to RIMPA Live, that NAA will be sponsoring, is about determining how we can value information assets. So it's a good segue, and I'm going to promote the hackathon here. But do you really, and this is my hope, I suppose this is my dream, Simon, is that information assets get to be on the P&L and depreciated the same way that, equipment and property and fleet and that are as well. Do you think, am I living utopia dream, or do you think it's possible?
Oh, look, I do think it's possible. I don't think it's easy. And it does take I think it takes quite a considerable mindset shift, because it requires individuals and agencies being actively responsible for the information in that sort of stewardship sense as well. But I'll give you an example, like the archival collection that National Archives has custody of is valued each year in our financial statements. And we do that. We bring in a valuer every couple of years, and they revalue the collection using an established methodology and approach that's understood across the industry. So it is possible, but as we've said, it's not easy, and it does take time, and it takes quite a specialization as well. I think I think the notion of valuing our information assets, I think we as a profession are quite immature in that space. I think we're at the very early stages of the journey, so I think there's a lot of work that can still be done. We had a conversation we had a CARA meeting last week, and we had a conversation around that table around the valuation of digital assets, and how the valuation approach might differ from physical assets, and how do you value digital assets that were actually not born digitally, but were analog records to start with, and are you then duplicating and things like that? So there's a whole sort of world to be unpacked there. But I think, generally, we've talked about applying a monetary value, and I think that really, so you look at it from an accounting perspective, and I think we've got some follow-up work from that CARA meeting where we're going to be touching base with the Australian accounting body, just to see if there's some work we can do with them around applying those accounting disciplines and principles to records. But there's other ways. There's other things that we can do as well. It doesn't have to be an information asset approach. You can take a risk management approach to managing your information. So that sort of risk-based approach, and that allows agencies, or encourages agencies, to really make sure that their practices are fit for purpose. You can also apply an integrity lens, so trying to improve trust and accountability through good information governance. And obviously none of those are mutually exclusive, so they can all be done at the same time within the ecosystem that you operate. So, we're doing a lot of work on all of those fronts, and we'll continue to liaise with agencies. Myself and the Assistant Director General of Collection Management within NAA are doing some work on a strategic engagement strategy around information governance. And we will be making sure that we're talking to people across government just to try and raise the profile of what good information management can do and what value it can bring to the organisation.
Well, that's great, because that's, again, working in partnership with RIMPA, because, as you know, that's one of our sort of key messages for the next 2 years, is about the value of information. And I know I'm thinking utopia, and I'm hoping into getting it on the P&L or the balance sheet in the future. But I suppose what I wanted to ask you, Simon, is, and this has become very pertinent, that with all the cyber security attacks that have been occurring over the last, let's call it 2 years, probably pretty much become predominant in your time as the Director General. Do you think that's actually increased the awareness amongst both government and private industry, the importance of effective records and information management?
Yes, I think it has. If you look back to some of the earlier larger breaches, and go back to the sort of the Optus breach and the ones that occurred just after that. What I found really interesting was that a lot of the discussion wasn't about the fact that there had been a cyber attack of that magnitude. It was about the fact that those institutions were still holding on to a plethora of information that certain members of the community felt they probably shouldn't be holding on to. And so I think that conversation around what we create and what we receive as part of our service delivery offering, and then how we retain it and how long we retain it for, I think that was a really interesting conversation. And I think that's certainly changed the mindset, I think, of quite a number of people in terms of the importance of actually not just sort of setting and forgetting your information governance, that you actually do have to take and be an active player.
Yeah, and it goes back to what you said: education, training, knowledge, the whole lot, doesn't it? Everything you've said today. I'd just like to say, I'd probably want to end it on that, because thank you very much. I just want to commend you, Simon, and all the team at NAA listening to you today, I don't think there's probably lots of people out there, hopefully, that listen to this interview that wouldn't know that you're doing all these amazing things. And I certainly didn't. So I've learned a lot today too, which is great. But keep up the good work. That's all we can say. And RIMPA are here to support what NAA do, and obviously CARA and those state and territory archives. So thank you again for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Anne.